Good evening, everyone. This is the March 1st, 2021 meeting of the Pompey Town Board. And I'm going to call the meeting to order now. It is 6:30. And we are meeting pursuant to the governor's executive order that allows us to hold our meeting.
We got Renee still there?
Renee, you froze.
You're frozen, Renee.
As we record meetings and transcribe and post them in written fashion, as well as the recording on our website. So we are using Zoom as our platform for live streaming tonight. And the meeting is being recorded by our webmaster and will be put on the town's website. So if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to start. And if we could all say it together, I pledge allegiance to
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the
of
republic
the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have all of our board members here, and if we could just acknowledge, well, I just want to acknowledge everybody. Ann Christmas, Town Councilor, myself, Renee Rotundo, Town Supervisor, Sheila Larkin, Town Councilor, Tim Fratelski, our Town Attorney, Bob Rodriguez, our Codes Officer, Judy McElhennon, our Town Councilor, Tom Chartrand, our Accountant Bookkeeper, Carl Dennis is Town Councilor, Nikki Reed, our Town Clerk, and our special guests for the third time running, Chris Carrick from the CNY Regional Planning and Development Board, and John Shaheen, who is the chair of the Solar Overlay District Overlay Local Law Committee. And also we have Veronica Hoteling. She's not on video, but she is our webmaster. And Carl, I asked you just prior to starting, we do have one passing of a very special community member, Gene or Eugene Barber. And I thought since you knew him for quite a while, you might want to say something in preparation for a moment of silence.
Gene Barber was known as Unc. One of his biggest hobbies was playing cards. He, along with other Delphinians, always got together one night of the week over the years, played cards. He had a big interest in snowmobiles when they first came out in the 60s, and a big interest in the firemen and running the combines and all the equipment. He'll started the lawnmower, the lawn tractor race in Delphi Falls for their annual Old Home Day or week, whatever it was called. And he was famous for that, the race of the souped up lawnmowers. He'll be sorely missed.
So if we could have a moment of silence for Mr. Barber, please. Thank you. And apparently, Carl, they're going to continue the lawnmower, the annual lawnmower parade.
Probably in his honor.
Circumstances permit.
Yeah.
So, so the very first item on our agenda is a continuation of the public hearing that we started on January 19th, continued on February 1st, and now this is section number 3 of this hearing for our solar energy system local law. And Tim, you're gonna have to remind me if we need to, do we reopen this hearing with a motion, or are we just continuing it?
No, you can make a motion to reopen the hearing for tonight.
I make a motion, we reopen the hearing on the solar energy system local law.
second it.
That was Judy seconding it. And all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. The only thing I would, just a couple of instructional remarks. Please, if you have already weighed in with your opinion, unless it's something new, please let other people have the opportunity, if there are any other people that at this point still want to weigh in. And the way you're going to do this is you can ask through the chat to be unmuted, and our webmaster can unmute you so you can speak and be heard. Or you can comment in a written fashion in the chat box, which is located, if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little icon that says chat. So those are the ways. At the end of whatever public comment we do have, I do have some written letters that I've gotten, and I will read those into the record. So at this point, I would turn the proceedings over to Veronica Hoteling to determine if there is anybody. Oh, before we get to that piece though, there is a revised version of the solar local law on the town's website. There is also on the town's website a very lengthy but very thorough discussion, some factual information that was provided by Chris Carrick at CNY Regional Planning and Development in response to many of the concerns that have been raised thus far in the hearing. So for those people that have access to our website, those documents are available for you to review. And Tim, I wondered if you could just maybe run through briefly the few revisions that were made since the last hearing session, so that the public is aware of what the changes are.
Yep.
Are you pulling it up?
I am.
Yeah. Did I catch you unawares? I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, they were not significant changes. They were, mostly the changes had to do with, if my recollection serves me correctly, the amount of KW we are going to allow for single-family residences or for roof mounted. We took all limitations out, so it could be any amount. The other bigger one had to do with the commissioning plan and the bond. We have amended it to allow for a third party to come in and to review the cost of construction of an abandoned site. And I think that was really kind of what we came to the conclusion for last time when we spoke. I think that's something Sheila was interested in, making sure that we had a third party instead of the set number of 50,000 per kilowatt hour. And
I think in that regard also, Tim, we established that every 5 years that amount would be reviewed to ensure that whatever the bond is that is going to be required to be posted to cover decommissioning, that there's enough there.
right.
Renee, you had made a comment on page 2, and it's under the qualified solar installer.
Yeah.
And we didn't take it out, but I am kind of in agreement with you that we might want to take this out. It says persons who are not on NYSERDA's list of eligible installers or NAB CEP's list of certified installers may be deemed to be qualified solar installers if the town code enforcement officer or such other town officer or employee as the town board designates. I think we should take that out and just go with the list and the qualified installers. That's how I feel.
No, that's, I appreciate you bringing that up. I wasn't sure if we should, at what point we did that, but we
Well-
would discuss that, but I did talk to John Shaheen about it because I was curious why that was even in there. It seems like a big mouthful.
Well, I just feel like who's really qualified to pick that person?
Well, that's
if it's
my
not
issue,
on a list.
but I don't know if this is the right times.
I think it's an appropriate time to at least.
Okay,
discuss
good.
it, Because, and I'll let John speak for himself, but John's issue was it's not for the large solar farms, it's more for the home use and whether somebody is qualified to put their own system in their own home. So John, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Tim, basically, we didn't, for the homeowner, we didn't want to make it too cumbersome. I know of cases where, for example, an electrical engineer installed a system on his own home, and certainly an electrical engineer is qualified to install a system like this. It's not rocket science. So it was just to leave an opening for somebody like that with those kinds of qualifications to be able to do it themselves. But, you know, I'm open to whatever the board decides they'd like to do in that regard.
Well, I don't know much about it, so that's just, me throwing it out there that you just don't want some random person being able to put up, whatever they want to put up. It's their property, I get it, and they can do whatever they want, I feel, with their property, but you just want to make sure that the person's qualified.
Good idea.
And I guess the concept there is that our code enforcement officer would make that determination. But if the board feels strongly about it, we'll just take that out and make that, make it anybody who's qualified by the NYSERDA to install them, then that will be our list.
They do need to follow through with all the inspections, if the homeowner does it or the contractor, we need to make sure that they do follow through with all the needed inspections on that.
And I think my concern was that I didn't know, number one, who's qualified to make the call, that somebody else is qualified.
So that's my concern. I'm not.
Yeah, but secondly, I don't want I would think that we would not apply any exception to the qualifications rule to tier 3 operators. I mean, this would only be if it was the residential. We certainly wouldn't want people that don't have the necessary or the NYSERDA qualifications or the NAB CEP, which does have it is an acronym for North American Board of Certified Engine Practitioners. But I mean, for tier 3, I would think we would definitely want those qualifications.
Yeah, maybe we should just note that, we could leave it the way it is, but just note it, tier 1, tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
So just my thoughts.
No,
Okay.
and that's why Tim put that over on the side, that I wanted to know what everybody else thought, because
Great
it's
idea.
helpful to me.
I agree, Joe. That was
An
good.
exception.
Agree.
So
And then
take it
the
out
other,
entirely or limit it to just tier 1 and tier 2?
Well, I suppose you could limit it to 1 and 2 as long as we note that, and then if
well, why don't we start?
he's, qualified enough to designate someone
Right.
that follows all the rules, it can't, it should be okay.
Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we start out with using the list at this point. And then if it becomes an issue where people really want to install it themselves, we can always go back and modify the law. But at least if we start it with the list and then we can make a determination later if it's an issue.
Okay,
I
Good
agree.
idea.
I like that.
Agreed.
So I would like to take out all of the language after persons on down in that paragraph. And just leave it be that they have to be certified by one of the two. They have to either be on the NYSERDA list or be certified by NABCEP.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I will move that.
Okay.
All right, let me go back through it now and see. Like I said, the other one was to, we took out all limitations on the capacity of a 25 kW or 50 kW for active farming. We clarified the issue with building permits versus the solar permit in section 5A.
For tier 1 and 2, you only need to do the expedited process, but for
Right.
anything with a
Right.
capacity of 25 kilowatt or more, you got to get a building permit.
Right. We talked about the issue of a ground mounted solar energy. This would be in section 6A. No, I'm sorry, 7A3
Setbacks.
related to setbacks. And we wanted to make it clear that ground mounted solar energy systems will only, won't be allowed on as a principal structure on a lot. There was the issue of, what if you had a lot and you wanted to build a solar, ground mounted solar system? Would you be allowed to do that? We have made that, we have answered that no. And it's hard for me to understand why we would want, or why anybody would want to put a ground mounted solar system on a empty lot, other than it's to feed.
Well, again, Tim, the idea was that somebody's property was made up of multiple parcels.
Uh-huh,
They could get around the prohibition for not installing it in a side yard by putting it on a parcel next door
right,
to power their home. And we didn't want to, again, because there's such a concern about these being located close to roadways from a view shed standpoint, that we wanted to preclude that. So that doesn't mean that if somebody had a situation like that and they wanted to do that they couldn't go before the ZBA for a variance. But we didn't want to just openly allow it. So on that open parcel, it would be a principal structure, but it would be powering the house next door. All the land of which would be owned by the same person. That was the idea. To preclude that.
right. Those were, and then again, we talked about hiring an independent engineer to provide report before construction begins. And it should be updated every 5 years, as Renee said. But those are really the main changes. Renee, or did I miss any?
The only one I think, because it's so small, was that we realized that if we didn't set a height limitation, that in farm, there's no height limit. So we did put on page 6 in 7A4, a limit that a tier 2 ground mount system is subject to the height limitation in the underlying zoning district that for accessory structures, or 20 feet, whichever is less.
Right,
So
Right.
We did that to make sure that we don't have any kind of like enormously tall structures. But I I think other than that.
Yeah, other than that, it was relatively minor stuff. We included a landscape architect along for who would provide the concept plan along with either a licensed engineer or an architect.
Oh, you know what the other one is? I'm just realizing with the decommissioning thing. On page 9, we also added a provision under decommissioning 6B. We added a subsection 4 to require that not just that a decommissioning plan include what's going to be the cost of removing and the time required to do it and or the time to repair, but also a detailed description of what the actual restoration work would involve, so that
Right.
there's an expectation. People will know, we'll have an idea of what the decommissioning involves. But other than that, I think
That's that.
we're good. So with that, that actually also gives anybody time that maybe wasn't ready to make a comment, some time to weigh in. So Veronica, I don't know if there's anybody that wants to weigh in because I can't see.
There's one comment or a question, I guess, from Greg regarding, can you please clarify, will the town of Pompey be the entity holding the bond for a private landowner? We will, the bond will be in the town's name. We can execute on the bond if the work has not been completed. So we wouldn't be holding it for a private landowner. The private landowner would actually be paying for the bond, so that it's an insurance policy, so that if the abandonment or the decommissioning doesn't take place, we can execute on the town would be able to execute on the bond.
That's the only question I see at the moment.
Well, what I'll do. Did
I'm
somebody?
sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just going back to section 7.3.
Section what, Chris?
7.3 on page 6. Regarding the setback language. It refers to ground mounted systems shall not be allowed as the principal structure on a lot. And I know that ground mounted systems are defined under the definitions. But I was wondering if the intent really was to address tier 3 systems in this regard.
No. It was to address tier 2s.
That's what I thought. So in that case, I would suggest maybe using that more specific language, because tier 3 systems are also typically ground mounted systems.
Yeah.
So in other words, ground mounted systems is a very generic, general definition that applies to both tier 2 and tier 3 in most cases. So if the intent is to really address tier 2 in that language, I would just suggest substituting tier 2.
Chris, even though it's specifically in bold print up in section 7 and also in the first paragraph A.
Well, that's a good point.
This whole provision is specific. I'm fine if you think we need to emphasize it more. It just seems like it's already emphasized.
No, that's a good point.
So you're saying Chris, you're saying 7A3, ground mounted solar energy system shall not be allowed as principal structures on a lot for tier 2, something like that. Is that what you mean?
That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Although I see the reference earlier for this whole
Yeah.
section.
Yeah, this whole section's about tier 2. but-
Right.
Right.
That makes sense. The other
But-
question I had was in number 4, under the same section, just regarding the height restriction of 20 feet. I would say that's a little bit higher than I typically see in a lot of zoning codes. So I was wondering how that figure was determined. I typically see 10 or 12 feet. So in this regard, it's a little more generous than what I typically see.
I think ours stay 15 right now, don't they?
What's that, Bob?
I think ours are 15 feet max right now.
I'm not sure on that.
I can go.
Um,
I think
I'll
we're
look it up.
15.
I'm just mindful of the comments that have been raised by some residents regarding visibility. And
Height.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
our
three-
height, it is 15 feet and the accessory structures in the farm and mostly in the farm, but you know, the other areas too is 15 feet, but I don't have a problem with making it lower as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. So if we want
No,
to adjust it
nor
lower,
do I. I think 15 would be fine.
I would just say it would be my suggestion to maintain the setback requirement language where it is at 100 feet. I know that's been a topic of some comment. And lower this height restriction as a way of addressing visibility issues.
Chris, can I just ask, typically are the tier 3, I see them, so I know what they, but I don't measure them. So are they typically not more than 10 to 12 feet in height?
The ones certainly that I've seen and the ones that we are trying to develop with Abundant Solar are, yes, about 10 feet. I
So
think that,
Lower it to 12 feet.
yeah, I mean, you want to allow
long?
some flexibility, I think, for changes in technology, keeping within, reasonableness standard of what's allowed in the district generally. So if the accessory height limit is 15 feet, I would suggest that's an upper limit that the town board could consider.
15
It
foot.
makes sense if it's 15 now, leave it at 15.
Okay, why
Yeah.
don't we leave it at 15?
Okay, I made that change.
Other than that, I don't really have any comments.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I do have one more. There was language regarding native plants. And I made a comment in the version I sent back to John earlier today. The language as written uses a practicable standard. Developers shall use native plants to the extent practicable. And that's in distinction to the NYSERDA model law, which sets a quantitative target of at least 20% of the area shall be planted in native plants. And so I was just wanted to point that out in case the town board wanted to go with a more quantitative standard, which may be easier to monitor and enforce rather than a practicable standard.
Are you talking about tier 3 now?
Correct. This is on page 11,
Yeah.
G3. Number 8, G3.
Hmm. So could you repeat that now that I found the provision?
Yes. The
Justin?
language as written says, to the extent practicable when establishing perennial vegetation and beneficial foraging habitat, the owner shall use native plant species and seed mixes. So I'm just, I'm suggesting that the board may want to consider you putting a number, a threshold, at least X% of the area.
Oh.
And
And
I
what,
certainly uses 20%. I think it would be reasonable to go to something like 50%.
The only problem with that, Chris, is that we wanted 100%. To the
Right.
extent, and to the extent practicable. I think what we can qualify that by saying to the extent practicable as determined by the town engineer or the town code enforcement officer. So it doesn't leave that practicability in the hands of the developer.
So I'll leave this to you, Tim. You're the expert on writing this kind of language, but maybe it's possible to use an either or standard, something like at least 50%, or the lesser of 50% or to the greatest extent practicable.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay, let me think about, let me work on that one.
I guess
Should be
I would,
open-ended.
yeah, and I wouldn't want to weaken that.
Mm-mm.
Right. No, I understand the intent there. I guess my personal preference is to have something that is a little bit more quantifiable.
So I have a couple other things. I just wondered, we talked about on the Environmental Conservation Commission call the other night, there was talk about the tree cutting, like not wanting to discourage tree cutting as a way to clear enough land to, for a solar, or for a tier 3 project. And I'm just wondering, the language about that, is it tier 3? Wait a minute, maybe it's not tier 3. Yes, it is. Yeah, on page 9, there is a section 5 that specifically talks about tree cutting, and I didn't know if that ever, I wouldn't think that we would want to encourage or be silent on tree cutting to ensure that there's enough land, open land for solar, but and I think somebody on the ECC called, said, well, maybe if they cut so many trees, then they have to plant so many trees. So, I mean, there was talk about that, but I just wondered if we think we should need, if the language is good as it is, or if anyone feels like we should strengthen it, or change it, or leave it alone.
Well, it does say that would be minimized or offset with planting elsewhere on the property. So there's an offset provision there, but we can strengthen it.
Keep in mind too, that the planning board would be paying attention to things like that.
I think it's
So
okay.
John, as a planning board member, in your experience, do you think that language suffices and would give the planning board enough leeway to say, you know, we can't prevent somebody from cutting down trees if they choose to on their property.
That's correct.
No, I mean, somebody could have a field logged for,
Right.
you know, to make some money, and then a year later sign a contract with a solar installer, you know? So,
To that extent, the site plan submitted by the developer gives the town a greater chance than might be otherwise
Okay.
available to monitor this. And I would say also, just point out that the town's language as written is more restrictive than NYSERDA's model law, which only refers to trees greater than 6 inches in diameter.
Say that again, Chris. I gotta turn my speaker up.
The NYSERDA law, model law, refers to trees greater than 6 inches in diameter should be minimized, the cutting of those. The town's language refers to all trees regardless of the diameter.
Okay. Veronica, if you got other, I can only see that there's numbers on my little chat icon. I can't tell if there's new.
Just a follow-up to the issue regarding the bond from Greg Hurley. Clarify what execute the bond means. What assurances are there that the money will be there? Sorry. What assurances are there that the money will be there should the initial company that places the panels goes out of business?
So the bond is for a specific purpose. It would be, you would buy a bond, and it says a certain amount of time the bond would be in place. Whether or not the business is in business or isn't in business, it's what's important is the bond itself and how long the bond is in place for. And it would be in the name of the town. So the town would be the one that would, when I say execute, I mean, it's like an insurance policy. You would make a claim on that policy because the underwriter of the bond knows that if certain things aren't done, that you can make a claim on that policy. So it wouldn't matter how long the business is in place. It matters how long the bond is in place. And we're talking about trying to reevaluate that bond on a 5-year, every 5 years. So it would be a 20-year bond, or as long as the life of the solar system is in place. That would be reevaluated every 5 years to make sure that it would pace with the cost of decommissioning and deconstruction.
And I would point out on page 11, there is a section on ownership changes, so that even if the ownership of the operation changes, that the subsequent owner is required to meet all of the obligations of the original site plan approval and decommissioning plan, and they're required to notify the code enforcement officer of those changes within 30 days. So there's provision in there to notice provision. And I think we would know if ownership of the property changes because we would get notification of that on a sale. That would be sort of a triggering event if the property changed ownership. I did wonder if the operator, if the solar owner of the solar system changed hands, how we would find that out if the property didn't change hands. That would be incumbent on the new owner to tell us that.
Yeah, that's generally how it would work. But like I said, as it relates to the bond is in play. It's like when you buy a 20-year bond or the bond is effective as long as that period takes place because you paid your premium on the bond in the beginning. So as long as that bond is if it's a 20-year bond, then within that 20-year period, you can execute on the bond or you can make a claim on that bond. Am I saying that? Am I?
No, I get it now. I do. And I was just responding to the piece about if somebody, if it's not owned by the same person, that part of the question.
Right.
But I also think that depending on, we're going to, at most, there's going to be a handful of these tier 3s. It's not going to be peppering our town, and at most there's going to be a handful, and that would be a codes officer responsibility to be double checking on those. We've talked about this on other meetings about needing to keep track of our inventory of various things that the code officer is responsible for on a regular basis. And if we just need to track things. We need to do a lot better job than has been done on tracking things.
I have a question. Where would these batteries go when they wear out? No more usefulness to them. Where's the batteries going to be taken to?
The lithium ion batteries, right now, there's companies that are recycling them. In fact, I was reading an article the other day where there's a company in, I think it's a Canadian company, but they're taking one of the old Kodak buildings in Rochester and converting it to a battery recycling facility. And they're claiming something like 70 to 90% recycle of components, recovering the lithium and some of the other metals. And you're going to see more and more of that, I believe. Maybe Chris could speak to that, but as time goes on and more of these components are out there, the materials are very, they're expensive. So there is incentive to recycle them, to reclaim them.
Well, I would just point out that there's nothing in this law that allows for the installation of solar plus storage systems. So this conversation, this issue came up in the ECC meeting. And what I recommended to the committee was that the board should take up a separate zoning law for the regulation of storage, energy storage systems. And NYSERDA has a similar guidebook as they do for solar PV for storage systems. I don't anticipate that we'll be seeing any solar plus storage in the near future. We haven't seen many in the region yet because of the economics of the market. So there's time to do that. The committee had asked, should we wait and fold that into the solar law? And I said, I don't think we need to do that. So while I hesitate to put John through another round of drafting language, I think that would be the logical step, would be to take that up as a separate matter.
You don't see a lot of solar storage right now, a lot of battery storage.
Not in this,
Mainly-
not in this utility zone.
No, it's mainly in, for buildings. And once you start doing that, you're getting into a whole nother realm of codes that it's going to make life a lot tougher. It's going to be a lot stricter.
Well, the state fire code already addresses storage systems.
Correct.
That is in place.
Yes.
So you shouldn't feel like you're unprotected.
Well, yeah.
Veronica, is there anything else?
Yeah, another one from Greg Hurley is someone who might potentially be interested in installing one of these systems. I've had discussions with business associates in other areas of the state who've told me there is a potential for heavy metals to seep out of the panels under normal operating conditions and allow for ground contamination. I was told the heavy metals contained within the panels could cause for the need to remediate the ground beneath the site at an astronomical cost. Do you have any research that speaks to these concerns?
Chris, I'm letting you take this one because we've gone through this topic quite extensively.
Right. And, you mentioned the memo that I wrote for the town board does cover this issue in some detail and has, I think, three or four references. A couple of those are to academic journals. One is to a state website from Massachusetts. Another one is to George Washington University. There were many other resources I could have referred to, but I didn't want to overburden the town board. The memo was lengthy already. I will just say that, some interesting research has come out, even regarding the landfilling of solar panels and the dangers that could be posed from leaching of heavy metals as a result of landfilling. The International Energy Agency, for example, just published something in the last 6 months that shows that using modeling tools that the EPA has, that there is extremely low risk, even under those, extreme conditions for that kind of leaching. So I think this is just one of those issues that there's a lot of misunderstanding about in the general public. But the memo is, on the town board, on the town website, as was mentioned, if Greg wants to go look at that.
And there's just one other comment that I think would go at the end of the meeting when you open up your public comment section.
Oh, okay. It's unrelated to solar, you mean?
Correct.
Okay, then I would wait on that one.
Yep.
So let me just read into the record or acknowledge some of the correspondence I've gotten since the February 1st town board meeting. I think all town board members received Mary Baum's very well-written February 9th, 2021 letter expressing her concerns. Nikki, I've marked mine up because that's what I do, so I will provide you with a clean copy that should go along with the record. It basically lays out with some citations many of the concerns she's raised on the previous hearings, and some of which Chris responded to in his 7-page memorandum. So that is, all the board members have it. That'll become part of the record. And I do believe last time I did read, I don't know if I gave it to you, Nikki, the email from Jennifer Granzo, if I'm not pronouncing that right, Granzow, She's a Pompey resident, and she had some concerns relating to legalities, but, and I think Tim responded to some of those last time. Then I have received, this is a template, so, but it's signed by, I have 20, I'm not sure exactly, 22 or 24 letters signed by various town residents. I'm going to read the template, and then I'm going to give the names of the people that signed it. These are all in support of going forward with this local law. Dear Town Supervisor, I would like to formally voice my support for the Community Distributed Generation Project currently under development in Pompey, New York, by TCA Microgrid Energy LLC, doing business as Pivot Energy, in collaboration with Pivot's co-development partner, Stork, S-T-O-R-K-E Renewables LLC. I have been in discussions with Pivot and Stork in a collaborative effort from the early stages of project development. All parties have been proactive in addressing my concerns, answering my questions, and providing me with insight into the process. I see tremendous benefit from this opportunity, both with regard to the long-term tax revenue it will generate, as well as the long-term savings it will deliver to commercial and residential subscribers in our community under New York's Community Distributed Generation Program. If there is additional information, please don't hesitate to contact me. The one proviso I'm going to give you about this is that I have no idea what this project is that's being proposed. So it might be the one on Sweet Road, but it doesn't reflect that, and so I don't know. This letter, these letters are signed by this is the same letter signed by, I've gotten 20 some odd times, signed by the following people: Aaron Horrigan of Route 91, Jamesville, New York; Robert Husick of Route 91, Jamesville, New York; Mike Albanese of Casanto Drive, Jamesville, New York; Nikki Leone, Ransom Road, Jamesville, New York; Rick Leone, Ransom Road, Jamesville, New York; Brent Leone, Route 91, Jamesville, New York; Patricia Leone, Ransom Road, Jamesville, New York; Edward Leone, Ransom Road, Jamesville, New York; Ashley Leone, with an email address. So I'm not sure where this person lives. Could be Ransom Road, since all of the rest of them seem to live there, but Mike McAndrew, who lives on Route 91, Jamesville, New York; Kevin Klosser on Pratt's Falls Road, Jamesville, New York; Julie, I think it's Wells, W-E-L-L-Z or I-L-L-Z. Oh, but actually, this one is Coy Road. This is not a Pompey resident, so I'm not going to count, nor do I think I should count a non-resident letter of support. Morgan Moon, Route 91, Jamesville, New York. Sharon Osakowski, Henneberry Road, Pompey, New York. William Osakowski, Henneberry Road, Pompey, New York. Kristen Sen, Swiss Vale Drive, Manlius, New York. Alex Sen, Swiss Vale Drive, Manlius, New York. Karen Klosser, Pratt's Falls Road, Jamesville, New York. I can't read this person's name, so I'm not going to count it. Bonnie. Oh, I can't read this person's name either. I'm sorry. They're signed, their signatures. There are people on Route 91, and then there is a Bush Road resident. I'm sorry, I can't read these names, so I don't think we should consider the names of the people.
Madam Supervisor, let me kind of jump in here because I'm a little,
Yes.
I think I'm a little confused.
I am too.
Which is not an unusual thing, but they're speaking to some kind of project or some kind of application before before some board of the town, which in my understanding, there is no such
There is
thing.
no application. I think the gist of what I get from this is that there, and I could be, I maybe shouldn't even include these here, is that
Yeah, my
there must be
suggestion
some
would be that
project.
this is a public hearing for the local law. This, that would allow for these types of facilities. But each individual project will have, as John Shaheen mentioned, will have its own hearing before the planning board. And each site would be, go through a planning board process, a site plan approval process. So while I'm happy that people are submitting their concerns or their opinions on a site, I'm not sure what site they're talking about or whether we even have an application for a site. So,
Well, we don't. I mean, that's been asked before, and I can say with certainty, there are no applications for solar in the town of Pompey because we don't have a tier 3 solar law that would allow for it. So if this is, I think I misunderstood that these people were supportive of the solar projects. But this sounds like there's a project somewhere in the works in
Right.
Pompey, but that these people have been contacted about.
Yeah.
So maybe this is not appropriate for me to have used them here.
well, they don't speak to the local law. They just speak to a project. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's fine that we mentioned it, but it's really, it doesn't, it's not about the public hearing for the local law that we're
Okay.
trying to pass.
I understand that. My mistake. Sorry.
No? Okay.
So for what they're worth, I guess.
Yes,
I would
for
say
what they're
at this
worth, that's
point, I mentioned them. I guess, Veronica, I don't know what else you have, but if we are at a point where the board can consider whether we want to close this public hearing.
There's just 2 more questions. James Loomis asks, and we may have answered some of this. What powers does a neighbor have that opposes a particular site that may be coming up for application?
There will be there will be a process before the planning board on each individual site. And there will be a public hearing for that project, and you can let your voices be heard by the planning board.
And what about the town board and the overlay?
Well, that too, that would be, we'd have to do the overlay district first. So there's 2 opportunities with the town board and then with the planning board.
And then there's one question, how do you have a proposed site on Sweet Road if there has been no application?
Can you say whose
Yeah.
question is that?
Mary Murphy Baum.
There's no application before the town. That doesn't mean that there aren't people out there talking and working. And that the town does not have any involvement in that.
So can we just confirm that we don't have that? I don't think we have it. Bob, do you have an application? Has anybody submitted an application to the town board or to the planning board for a specific site?
Bob, can you unmute? And answer that?
We have no applications at this time.
Okay. Nikki, you don't know of any applications that have come in?
Not for tier 3, no.
Not for, okay. Because things could come in, we just might not know about it, but I don't know of any.
So board members, what do you think about are you ready to close this hearing?
I'm ready to close.
Judy,
I
Carl?
make that we close the hearing for tonight.
Well, if not just for tonight, if we close it, we're going to close. Or if
For
we're
good.
to be done with the public hearing, which we
Yes,
for 3 separate nights.
I make a motion, we close it. Until we can make a vote on it, which is not tonight.
You'd want to continue it then to the next meeting, then make the vote.
Well, we could do that, Carl, but I'm not sure. It seems like all of the issues have been flushed out. I don't know what else.
Do you have to revise the revisions yet that we talked about tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
So Madam Supervisor, if you want me to kind of jump in, my
Yes.
thought was that we would close the public hearing tonight. That would give me a month to kind of put in a resolution form, the local law and a resolution approving the local law, and then that to you a week or so before the meeting next month. And then you could decide whether you want to support the local law or not, the resolution. But I'd like to develop a resolution that kind of incorporates everything we've been talking about in the last 3 public hearings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes,
So Judy's made a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a
Second
second?
it.
Second,
Here's 2 seconds. Carl and Sheila. Any more discussion on this? Board members? Those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried to close the hearing. And I would ask him to draft a resolution, and I think we also need to do seeker next time.
Yep.
Before we consider whether or not we will pass this. So if we can get that about a week ahead of time, Tim, that'd be great, and then everybody gets a chance to really focus on it one more time.
I'll try to get it done as quickly as possible, hopefully. within a
Okay.
week
All
or so.
right. As always, John Shaheen and Chris Carrick, I just really want to thank you for your technical assistance.
guys,
Yeah, it's been very helpful through,
A lot of work put into it. We thank you for all the job well done.
yes.
yes,
And actually, I'm not going to forget Sheila, because Sheila was very helpful. She was on the committee and did a lot of work on this too. So thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome.
thank you, everybody.
My
The
pleasure.
committee.
Excuse me?
I said as well as the rest of the committee.
Yeah,
Oh, yes. Okay.
Let me know if
Um,
I can offer any more assistance. Happy to do that.
I know where to find you.
Okay, thanks, Renee.
That's
Thank
bad.
you.
Renee,
Nice.
Yes,
can
Sheila.
you make Chris's memorandums available to the general public if they ask for it?
It's on the website. We
Okay, I
posted it.
didn't know. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
no, we put it
Yeah.
on, if you go to the homepage where our town board meeting notice is, there is a link to his memorandum. And in
Fabulous.
addition to the most recent revisions that
Yeah,
Tim
there's
just
a
went
lot
through.
of answers in those memorandums, Chris. They were very, very well written. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Sorry to make you read.
No, it was my, I like it.
Okay, take care.
Okay,
Thanks, Chris.
okay. Back to regular business. Tom Chartrand, let's get to your bookkeeper's report.
Okay, so if we want to start with the receipts and disbursements, there's some big numbers there. Nikki brought in all of the taxes by February 1st for the town, so we were in great shape there. We had a small NYMER insurance refund, and we also received the town of Fabius, the rent for the assessor's office and a postage reimbursement. On the highway fund, some more taxes. We also got our first half of the county snow and ice removal for the county roads plowing, and that came about a month earlier than normal. So if anybody sees Dave Knapp, thank him if he had a hand in that, because it's always good to have the money in our coffers as we're spending it with those last
Yeah.
few weeks there. On special districts, of course, a lot of taxes came in there as well. When you get down to the expenditure side, general abstract number 2 at $1.4 million looks quite large, but the bulk share of that went to the taxes that we collected for the Pompey Fire District. and for the SOTS district. And the same thing down at the bottom under special districts. Those funds were the 757,000 went mostly to Manlius, Delphi, and KVAC. So that's why those numbers look quite large. They're really just very few checks written. And Renee, I'm sure, loves signing those big ones.
No, I don't.
So that's where we're at on that. Let's see, next you had unallocated fund balance.
Get on there because
I
I don't
gave
know
you-
if we needed to address it or not this month.
Well,
but-
Yeah, I'm addressing it a little bit with the transfer, the budget transfer. So as you know, we're started in on the LED lighting project for all the street lights. So we had to pay up front $13,000 approximately to get that project started. We're going to get back about 6,387. So I'm asking the board to appropriate 10,000 of that closing balance to cover our short term until we get the rebate from NYSERDA, I believe it's who it comes from. And so we had talked about this at the end of the year, that this would be one of those good places to spend some of that excess funding.
Yeah,
Because it's going to be a
Especially because-
long-term savings.
we're not going to, ultimately, I think the out of pocket is what, a little over 3,000?
Yeah,
We're in that range,
well,
so,
about 6,000 total out of pocket, so.
yeah. So,
Motion to transfer the 10,000 to the other fund?
I'll
and I
second
would
it.
second it. Oh, Sheila seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Okay. Next thing I wanted to address, of course, is our spending year to date, which the numbers aren't huge. General fund is currently at about 21%. A lot of that's due to the fact that we have to pay our retirement right off the bat in the beginning of the year. And our revenues are at 82%. And of course, that's due to the fact that we are very tax-based budget. Our highway spending is currently at 9%, and our revenue in the highway fund is at 88%. So we're looking quite good there.
Good.
And there's nothing really to address in the main part of the report, other than the one transfer that we already took care of. So I think that's all I had on that. Next item was bank reconciliations for the supervisor, clerk, and tax collector.
A
Motion
motion that we
made.
approve them.
Second it.
I heard Ann and then I heard Judy. Carl, you got beat out for once.
Once.
Any discussion? All
No.
in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, next item was the vouchers. Was there any questions on any of them that need to be addressed?
No, I think I asked you my questions earlier today, so I'm good. And everybody else good? Well, Ann, you don't get to weigh in.
So then we would need a motion to,
Motion.
so I'll be able to write those checks.
Make a motion to accept that.
Second.
I heard Judy made a motion, Carl seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, we finished with the budget transfers. The last item there was AUD. That's the annual update for New York State. They take my normal monthly report that's about 15 pages and turn it into 120 state pages. No, I think it's about 100, wasn't it, Renee?
Yeah,
So I've delivered that.
the eyes
to-
glazed over.
Yeah, I delivered a paper copy of that to Nikki and also a copy of the aud that was filed for the SOTS district as well. So she has got both copies there. What we need is a motion authorizing her to put an ad in the paper that the aud has been filed with New York State and is available for review in the town clerk's office during normal hours. But most people would rather review the 15-page one instead of the 100-page one.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that Nikki put an ad in the paper saying the year-end report has been filed.
Second.
Second.
Ann made a motion, Carl seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tom, is that something, or Tim, I should ask, maybe, I don't know, that we, not that anybody would want to read it, but just if we're going to make it available to the public, can we put that on the website?
We can put it on the website. It's just a massive file with
I
that
know.
many pages.
But just with COVID and people not come, I mean, I'd rather have people have it available in electronic format than have to travel to the town hall to look at it, is what I'm thinking.
If you have room if you have room.
I'll check with Veronica then.
So do you want me to forward it to Veronica, or do you want to forward the one I sent you, Renee?
I can forward the one I sent. I can forward the one you sent me.
Okay.
What kind of file is it?
It's a PDF,
Okay.
but one of them's 80 pages and the other one I think is 25 pages.
We'll talk, Veronica. If we can, I'd like to, just to make it easy for people to see. I mean, not that a lot of people might not be interested, so.
Yeah, well, the worst part is that about 70 of the pages have like 5 lines on them. It's just a complete waste of space.
Exactly. Okay, Nikki.
Okay, if anyone had the chance to review the February 1st, 2021 regular meeting minutes, I'm looking for board approval.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of 2/1/21.
I'll second that.
I think Ann seconded it. Any discussion? Other than they were great. Again, Nikki, you do a great job. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Good job.
you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The next thing I have is a shredding/recycling event. I reached out to Ann as the previous town clerk to see how the town celebrated Earth Day in the past. And she said that the town used to provide a shredding event for Earth Day, and that the residents really loved it. So I did call Shred Solvers, who we've used in the past, and they said they would be able to host the event for us if the board chooses to do so. They have Wednesday, April 21st from 9 to noon, and they have Saturday, April 17th from 9 to noon, or Saturday, April 24th from 9 to noon. Earth Day is Wednesday, the 21st. So I was thinking either the Saturday before or the Saturday after. The cost for this is $150 per hour. And they do have some things they wanted to be advertised, such as no more than 10 file boxes, which is also equivalent to like 10 kitchen trash bags per car.
Oh, man.
So basically per family, no more than 10 bags per family. Residents must wear their mask and they're not allowed to leave their vehicle, and all items must be in the back seat or the trunk to keep the volunteers safe. We'll be disposing of those items. Let me see. So I don't know if that's something, I just thought if, Earth Day, if that's
Was
something you wanted
always
to
well
do.
received in the past. People
Yes,
liked it.
It's a great idea, Nikki.
And Nikki, were you thinking, I mean, I thought when you mentioned it to me, that we were talking about doing other sort of recycling of other things along with it?
Yes, I figured if we already have people coming up, some of the other ideas was like old prescriptions or medications, which Anne has a little bit more knowledge she's willing to share.
I reached out to the pharmacist that's helped me in the past, and she will come over on the 24th. You need to have a pharmacist there to take the medicine in. And her boss will allow her to come over, but no controlled substances can be brought over. Sleeping medicines, hydrocodone, no needles. And she's asked that if we advertise it to make sure that is put in the ad also. People can take their controlled substances to Wegmans. They had that twice a day. But she's willing to come over on the 24th of April to do it.
Would this include electronics? Nikki?
I didn't check into electronics.
No, I didn't ask about that. That's a good question. I can call and ask Shredder. But I feel like in the past,
We
usually
never did that in the past.
more of
You know, we
old.
did,
Maybe the
mostly the
company
sh-
does the same thing for the 150 an hour. They might do electronics as well, you know, so I don't know.
We
Okay.
can check in, Nikki, maybe you could
Yeah.
check into that and see if if they do it, if it's an extra cost or if they don't do it at all.
Okay.
Thanks, Nikki.
Sometimes
Yeah.
those events or whatever they call, electronic events are separate from any other kind of recycling. Didn't we talk about maybe scrap metal too?
We did. We talked about scrap metal. We also talked about batteries, you know, maybe doing a battery drop off or a can and bottle return, just making it more worth the time of what we can clean up and donate.
And we thought if we made, if there was like, if people drop things off that we then would turn in and make, what were we talking about with the funds? If there was any funds from this to
Like
donate them?
I thought we could donate it to local charities.
Are we
or the
allowed to do
local-
that?
No.
Oh, Tim's shaking
I
his
think so.
head. And so is Tom. No? Does
No,
that becomes town revenue?
sure.
Once it's left on town property, it becomes town property, and then you're subject to all the other laws about giving away public property.
Right.
Scrap metal, I figured we already know the answer to that one, but we've heard about that ad nauseum, but I just wondered about the others, if there was any way we could share that. Since it's really trying to just do a public service, you know, make it convenient for people to bring their waste products and we would take care of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the shredding company that we use does not do anything other than shredding. I don't think they do
Alright.
recyclables or anything else. Because there's quite a bit of DEC licensing to collect all of those electronics.
All right. So, I like the idea of the shredding event and let's see what we can piggyback off of it. I don't know what you need from us, Nikki, like some approval for to cover the cost of the shredding. And then I don't know where that comes from, Tom Chartrand.
It would probably come out of our buildings account or out of our landfill account.
Okay.
So do we just need to make a motion for that?
I think
You need a
so.
motion to how many hours and how many dollars you're spending.
What
I
time?
think in the past 9 to noon would be good.
Yeah,
So
they are only
that's $500 maximum, maybe.
Yeah, they have other events in other towns in the afternoon. That's why they said they'd only be able to do 9 to noon and it's $150 an hour.
Well, I think that's sufficient.
Mhm.
We don't, if it's been a popular event, we have 3 hours on a Saturday morning, that's a good idea. That's a
Do
good.
you
and we
want to
need some-
pick the day that would be better suited for you, Nikki?
Well, if we have to have a pharmacist, it's going to have to be the 24th, and I'm fine with that, if that works for everyone else. I know we have to find volunteers, and I'm not sure how to go about doing that either. If it's really
We
an
all have
idea that-
family members.
Oh, they all,
Yeah, we all have family members.
Good.
I'll make a
So-
motion for that.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Is there any other discussion that we will make a motion to spend no more than $500 for a shredding event for the
Right.
purposes of getting the shredding company here? Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Yes.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Perfect, thank you. The second idea I had was a community cleanup event. It would have to be April, May, when the weather gets a little bit nicer. But I did reach out to some other towns to see if they do community cleanup events, and most of them do. Again, everything costs money, so it's a discussion that you would have to have, but I reached out to Okra to call and see if I could get trash bags and tags and what that would cost. And I missed her call when I was on the other line today, so I have to call her back in the morning. I do know once we have, if we had one set day where the community cleaned up garbage, I think it would be a huge benefit. I have a call log in my office that I keep, and we have numerous calls on garbage in the ditches and on the roads, especially along Pompey Center Road seems to be a really common one. So with that collected garbage, obviously it has to go somewhere. So I reached out to Waste Management to see how we would go about disposing of all the garbage. And they gave me some numbers, which I don't know if you would want now, but they do 30-yard, 20-yard, and 10-yard dumpsters. And they basically would drop them off at the highway department. We would only have it for the day. It's a lot cheaper. If they typically do a 7-day, you can leave it for 7 days, but the cost is a lot higher. So they were willing to work a deal. They said if we left it there just on a Saturday and they picked it up at the end of the day. The 30-yard dumpster is $863. And they said they would give us a discount on delivery and pickup if it was the 1 day. The 20-yard dumpster, which is 2 tons, is $744. A 10-yard dumpster, which is 1 ton, would be $594. And if we go over 3 tons, if we got the biggest dumpster and went over that after they haul it away and they weigh it, we would be charged $91 per ton.
Nikki, have
Renee,
you
if
talked
you
to
don't-
Tom about this, Purcell? Because usually on Earth Day, he is there with a couple of the guys in the morning. People come with the trash they've picked up and they make a trip in with whatever they've collected. I don't know, Tom, do you know where they take it?
Yeah, Okra gives us a certain weight limit that we can bring in on Earth Day. It has to be bagged, and then Tom can take it into Okra.
But what if we didn't do this on Earth Day? I'm only concerned about the weather being,
Me too.
Well, I'd be concerned that it's free on Earth Day, and
Yes.
Well, I guess what we could do is we can advertise or promote Earth Day, that as part of Earth Day, see what we get. I mean, maybe we'll luck out and we'll have a spring thaw, who knows?
yeah.
There's been, Not
I would reach out to
quite.
Tom right away because I do know that there's some time limits involved in getting on the Earth Day cleanup list.
Okay. Okay, I'll make a little note of that. And the last thing I had was I was looking for at least 2 board members to come in and review my tax collector and town clerk books from
I'm
2020.
more than willing to do that since I've become well-versed in doing these checklist audits, but I would need a partner.
Nikki, I am gonna be up there tomorrow. I don't know, is it ready?
It's almost, I mean, my books are ready, but Tom just shared a checklist with me that was sent to my old email address. So I have to go through the checklist just to make sure
Okay.
everything's
I
there.
can make the time. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So Sheila, why don't you and I figure it out? And when Nikki's ready, we'll just go up and we'll go through the checklist and if we have any problems, we will call Tom.
That sounds good. I've done
The
it
town
before.
supervisor records are also up there waiting for your audit as well.
Yes, but I can't, I
Mhm.
do my own records, so
Right.
somebody else is gonna have to help out with that.
Yep,
I can help you, Sheila.
yeah, I will.
Who said that?
I would help Sheila.
Okay,
Yeah, if I'm given enough warning, I'd be glad to come up and help. It just, I can't always drop
Okay.
everything, but let me
Okay,
know a
well-
little bit in advance and I can try to be up there to be helpful too.
Okay.
thanks, Tom. All right, we will. Got volunteers, so thank you, guys. So Nikki, are you good with your?
Yeah. Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Tom is not on our call, Purcell, because of the weather. He called me about an hour before our meeting and just saying there's no way. He does, however, he weighed in with a couple things. First of all, he does have information now on the water treatment system that he's gotten in from the companies that he had reached out to. I think there was 2 of them that had said they couldn't do anything, and I'd asked him to go back to them and reconsider, see what they thought, just to see if we could get some variety here. So he has something to report on that. The Salt Barn roof repair, we can just put on hold for the moment. It's not the weather for it anyway. But he is asking that we consider holding a special meeting, as he did get a quote in for the plow truck, which is significantly above the budget that he set. The number he gave me was it's $40,000 above the budget. He needs to get with Tom Chartrand to look at that, and then he would like to have an opportunity to talk to the board about it. So I don't know if we are inclined to hold a special meeting for that purpose. I don't know what the time frame is on it. I didn't get a chance to really ask him about that. Tom, did you talk to him at all about this?
No, he didn't share
Yeah,
that yet.
I think he just got it and said he had to get with you. He just got a quote. I think he got it from, would it make sense that if you got it from Tracy Equipment?
Tracy is the Western Star dealer, and they're also on county contract.
Okay, so that's why I think it's Tracy that he got the quote from. So he's a little bit disappointed and concerned. So I think he needs to get with you. And then maybe what I'll do, board members, is if we need to meet before the next meeting, I will let everyone know.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay. Tim. I think I forwarded to you just late this afternoon, the health emergency plan document that the union had to review.
And they had just one minor change on it, so make that change. So as we've been discussing in the, I think at least the last meeting, maybe the meeting before also, we're required to come up with a mandatory health emergency plan to address how town hall and town employees would operate under an emergency declaration by health emergency declaration by the governor. I'm pretty sure it's all related to the COVID situation and what happened there. I have drafted a plan with input from Renee, and I have made it available to everybody to review. We are supposed to have this plan adopted by April 1st. Of course, our next meeting is going to be after April 1st. So the plan is really just kind of defining what we have already done, kind of incorporating what we've done in the past to address the COVID situation. And it's been kind of codified into that section. And there's boilerplate language related to who we're going to use, the issues of social distancing, the issues of cleaning, the issues of mask wearing. All of those are involved in that plan. So if everybody has reviewed it, or if anybody has any questions they want to ask me or Renee, you feel free to. But if nobody has any objections to it, I think we could probably pass or approve that plan tonight. We'll keep it filed with the clerk's office. And if an emergency comes up, we'll have a blueprint to work off of. Hopefully we'll never have to use it.
Yeah, I'd make a motion. We've authorized for the public employer mandatory health and emergency plan.
Second it.
That,
Oh, I heard Carl, and then was it Judy or Sheila? I didn't.
Sheila can do it.
Okay, Sheila is seconded. Does anybody have any discussion? I just have one question, Tim, and that is
Yes.
that I feel like a lot of this, because we have one person per department, is like overkill for us. Like, I mean, we don't have like, you know, multiple employees in our clerk's office or codes or wherever, where we got to decide who's going to be essential and who's not. So some of this seems very much like overkill, that I would hate to get us like stuck with having to follow all of this if we didn't need to. That's my only concern with it, is it just, and I don't know if you can address that, if the,
Well, the plan can be amended if we run into
Right.
problems. We can always amend
Okay.
it in the future. But it really, the format of it has been provided by the state. So we're kind of working off the state's plan, and we're trying to kind of shoehorn a small town into a state's plan, which contemplates Westchester County and, you
Yeah.
know, the town of
Got
Islip and all the other things. But we have to have something in place. So
Okay.
I'm,
Well, I guess if, in that regard, I would rather have something in place and then we can come back to it. There's a lot of positions in there that we don't even have, and I agree with the concept. It's a good concept. I just felt like there's so much in there that seemed just not applicable to our little town.
well, why don't we
Our little
approve
town
it tonight?
government, let's put it
And
that way.
then if people have questions or if people have other comments or or if you want to change it or amend it, we can always amend it in the future. But at least we'll have a
Okay.
plan approved by.
Okay.
April 1st.
Like,
Okay. So any other discussion besides my question?
No,
All those in favor?
Hi.
I,
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
The next item on the agenda for me is the it's the Board of Elections contract. I've reviewed it. Every town is entering into these contracts. We have to enter into the contract. It essentially allows the county to come in, Board of Election come in and hold their election, and and it's a simple contract. They hold us harmless for anything that happens.
I would make a motion to,
Authorize the supervisor to sign the
authorize
contract.
myself
second it.
to sign this contract. Judy seconded it. Any discussion?
No.
Those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
The next item on the agenda is the Enhanced Sheriff Service Contract. I have reviewed the original contract. This is really just an update of that with new numbers that we'll be paying. We pay as we use. So as long as you're comfortable with the new hourly rates, then I would recommend we enter into the contract with the Sheriff's Department as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Ann, did you second?
Yes, I did.
yes,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, just so for the public's knowledge, the new rate is $85.42 an hour, and we will be very responsible about how we use this contract. We will use it when we need it. And luckily for us, with the courts closed, it hasn't, you know, we just automatically aren't using it as much. But, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Then the last item on the agenda on my, under the town attorney is the responses that I have gotten from the letter that we sent out earlier this month or earlier last month to the cell tower companies, basically asking them for an inventory of who owns the cell tower, how many antennas are on them, and just trying to get a handle on whether the site plans are expiring or not. I have heard back from 3 companies. Renee, did I send those responses to you? I thought I forgot to. I should have. I thought I
That's
did.
okay.
But I will send everybody the responses I've gotten so far. 2 of them have been from television stations who own the towers, and 1 was from a cell tower company.
And Stan Gorman, who's on the ECC, the Environmental Conservation Commission, is going to be working with a subgroup there on this topic. So I think we could also share those with him, and I'll get, either send them to me and I'll forward them on to him if you don't have his email, but
I'll send them to the board and then you can forward them.
yes, okay. And there does seem to be some, I think Bob actually got something back from one of them. I don't know if they were, is
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I think something came to him by mistake and he didn't know what it was, but I said, I think this was meant for Tim. But slowly but surely, we're making progress on that. Okay, thanks. Tim, Bob, you're up.
I have not started the fire inspections yet. We will be starting them this week. I've already, I started making appointments on Sunday with a couple of places. I'm about halfway through my 43-page 1203 report to send to Albany for last year's inspections. To date, we've only done 12 permits, 2 new houses. Inspections aren't going as fast as they were last year. We don't have quite as many, but we still have things. You know, the town is still progressing. We're still getting applications and
Okay.
people are interested in building. They're still proceeding with building. I just reviewed one just now. So we've got we got 5 applications sitting here waiting to go.
Bob, speaking of permits, I just want to advise the board that I've been looking at the fireworks permit and I've been comparing it to the penal law provisions about what's required for you to get a permit. And I think our permit is pretty out of date. So I'm going to work with Tim to update it, to have it be more reflective of the provisions in the penal law that require a permit from the town. And one of the things we looked at was, is this town authorized to even issue permits for fireworks? Because, and Nikki, I tasked her to go back and look. And yes, we are, because in 1955, the town board authorized us to issue permits for fireworks. And I'm amazed that we actually could find those records. So, Nikki.
Good job, Nick.
Yeah. Carl, do you want to update us on the painting for the town hall?
Yes, under Winslow Painting, we started out, they put in a quote of 2,000 to paint the inside of the town hall. And the cupola hadn't been done then. And so now the cupola is all brand new. So they agreed to 500 more there. And then we realized the hallway down to the vault had gotten left out, and that's 400. So I make a motion, we award this contract to Winslow Painting for 2,900.
Second it.
Judy seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
Renee, I've been taking these classes with NYSERDA for the energies. I want to update our building permit application. With the 2020 building codes, we are not collecting the proper information. So I'm waiting for the company that puts this training on to send me the paperwork, and I want to revise the application.
Okay. Work with Tim on that.
Yep.
Anything that we're going to do that's going to require us to use it for the public. But that's fine.
Complying with the
Appreciate that.
energy- it Makes the homeowners comply with the energy codes.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good, Bob. Thanks.
Thanks,
Uh,
Bob.
The last thing I'm still asking for is the paperwork for the fire alarm. So I can get that going.
Well, I thought we talked about, we want to check the county purchasing
Right.
because what we've discovered is we are allowed to, as a town, what they call it piggyback off of county contracts that are already in place for various things. And they have a contract already in place for fire alarms. So I just asked Bob, we just haven't talked about it, to check. I just got the access to that system last week. And it's the same for the salt barn roof. They already have a roofer, roofing contract. And if we can use their roofing contract, which has already been awarded as state county contract, we can save lots of money on the having to bid it out and all of the information, the stuff that goes along with that. So before we do that, I just want to double check on the county system that that whatever, I know we already approved the purchase last, in February, I'm pretty sure. So it's just a matter of double checking that. And then I've got the paperwork on the other quote. So then we'll be good to go.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We put money in the budget this year for a new server. And
Yes.
pulling out all the information. Nobody wants me to anyway at this hour. Suffice it to say that when we had our new IT company do an assessment of what our needs were, the server was at the top of the list. It's old, it's out of warranty, it's out of, the operating system is in need of updating. And so we, $3,000 or $3,200, I think maybe exactly, in the budget this year, because we felt like that was a priority. That would be the next step in our IT needs.
We have 3,000 in the budget for that.
3,000. So in the meantime, Dan Bender, who is our IT guy, got in touch with me to let me know that they had a customer. He had built a, and I'm going to get this wrong because I'm not an IT person. Maybe Sheila, you should be the one to explain. But he had built a server. And then had for a customer, and then had the customer went out of business last year. And he said it's a Dell Tower server with 2 years that has 2 years under its 22 months. But it's spec'd very nicely with solid state drivers, plenty of power, and he can extend the warranty for up to 3 more years. It would cost us $1,500. So to me, having worked with Dan now for the better part of a year, and he's always had at this point our best interests at heart, and knowing that we don't have a big budget, for him to offer this, I feel like it's not that it would be, I'm not worried because it's used, because I don't think he would offer it to us if he didn't think it was worthwhile. I'm wondering what the board's thought is on this, if we want to expend $500 or $1,500
1,500.
to upgrade our server. I think it might be a really, really sweet deal for the town.
Go for it.
Sounds
make a-
good.
Then I would make a motion that we use $1,500 of our allotted money server to purchase this Dell. I'm sorry, guys, I'm just not a tech person.
Server.
This Dell server.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome. No, thank you. That's
Oh,
great.
you're-
Thanks,
yeah,
Dan.
yeah, it is great. I will
does a
thank
great
Dan.
job.
Yes. We're very lucky.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, just a quick update on where we stand with our clean energy community efforts. If we get 4 benchmarks, we qualify for all kinds of NYSERDA funding, and there is a lot in the pool this year that I've noticed. We just got notified that we got our first credit for our energy benchmarking that John Shaheen has been spearheading with Tom Chartrand's very valuable help, because we need to, for 12 months, monitor our energy usage. And I don't know why we got the credit for this before we finished the 12 months, but apparently the resolution saying we're going to do it and John's efforts have allowed them to give us the credit. So we have 1 credit. We also will be shortly having 2 credits, because the LED lighting conversion will give us the 2nd credit, and we just paid National Grid for that. So that will be number 2. Bob is currently taking energy code enforcement training, which is another one of the benchmarks that, I shouldn't use the word benchmark because benchmarking is separate, but it's another one of the standards that if we meet, gives us a credit. So Bob is partway through that. He's doing it through NYSERDA. And once that's done, he will be trained to enforce the energy codes of the state of New York. Probably already does that with his other job, but that would be number 3. And once we get our unified solar permit revised, we already have it, but it's out of, it's not the current one. That will be number 4. So we are really in good shape this year to get our CEC credit or certification, I guess is what they call it. So I just wanted to let the board know that we're on track, and it's all good to be looking at ways to be energy efficient and lessen our carbon footprint. Board members, I sent you email correspondence from the Pompey Historical Society. They had 2 separate requests. One that we can probably consider, the other I've already told them no, because we have no storage room for 10,000 books on pallets, which is something they were asking us to do. But they did, they were contacted by Jerry, I won't get his name right, Antil, who is the Pompey Hollow Club author. He would like to donate his writing studio and the rock around which the club used to meet.
White Rock. White Rock.
Sorry, Carl?
It's the White Rock.
The White Rock, sorry. To the Pompey Historical Society, they are asking for permission to be able to put it on property that the town owns. In talking to Carl and Sheila, and I don't know who else I talked to, I think the White Rock is an easy, I mean, that could go over there. They want to put a plaque with it and explain it. The studio isn't even an option right at the moment because it's located in Texas, where Mr. Antil used to live. And I think it's part of it's going to be part of his estate when he's no longer with us. But for some reason in planning, the Historical Society wanted to know if we would allow them to put that studio, if it ever gets here, on a part of our property over across the road. I've told them there is a lot of things that still need to be done before we can agree on the writing studio. I think we could agree on the rock is it's the only reason. They seem particularly anxious to want to like work out some of this. So I don't know if.
I think we should accept the White Rock. It's a tribute to Delphi, brings them up and they become part of the, up there at the Historical Society. The White Rock would be moved by Clancy. As long as our insurance is in effect when they arrive with it, I'd make a motion, we accept the White Rock from Jerry Antel and to be brought up by the Pompey Historical Building.
I'll second that.
Sheila seconds it. Does anyone have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried for the White Rock. And I would table the other items for, they're just, I don't believe we're in a.
A lot of complications with the other.
Yeah, so, Ruth Hoteling usually does her historian's report, in person, but she can't be in person and she's not good with Zoom. She has no audio. So she asked me to, and I know everybody, the board members have gotten a copy of it. She asked me just to mention that it exists. I will also, Veronica, give it to you to put on our website. It goes through last year's events or lack thereof due to COVID and how that COVID affected their situation. They did experience 2 deaths in their Pompey Historical Society family. Their treasurer, Paul Harvey, and also Gail Moreland, who was a past president. That was first and foremost in Ruth's report. But I assume all the board members have read it. We'll put it on the website. So I'm not going to read it into the record. If Ruth was here, she could discuss, but is everybody?
Excellent report.
Yes, always.
I read it.
Okay. Next thing on my list, I did get a response and I shared it with the board, with all of you, from National Grid on what it would cost, because we did have a request to consider adding streetlights to the corners of Citation Drive. So if I'm correct, to put the street light at Citation and Route 20 would cost about $111 and change annually. To put one at Citation and Gardner would cost an additional $95.97. I don't know what, I mean, I know Tom Purcell has mentioned that he does not believe that there's a need for lighting there. I don't know. It's been, the request came from one family on Citation Drive, but I wonder what the board's thought is, given the cost. If it would be wise to put lighting there.
Yeah,
Could
I
we-
wonder, going by Tom's, he drives under it all the time and the tour of the roads and plowing, and maybe we might look at his recommendation. He says, but there's no need for one there.
Well, I was gonna say, I'd have to see at night before I can comment. I would take
Yeah.
what Tom says.
We'll both look at it. We'll all look at it at night, next meeting.
Okay.
we'll do-
Yeah.
And-
I
and-
would
and I-
table it, but
Yeah,
I'm
let's
happy
put
to
this
drive
off.
up.
I did, and just so you know, I did reach out to the Pompey Hill Fire Chief, Mike Smith, and asked him, are there accidents there? Is it a particularly dangerous intersection? And he says there's been no accidents at those intersections. So in terms of like a concern with safety, that's I was concerned, and I just wanted to see what the accidents record was, and it doesn't sound like there is much of one. So let's wait till Tom's back and we can address it then. I just want to give the board an update that we did have our first meeting of the work group that's considering a special event permit. We were missing one of the 6 of us, so we are going to meet again. The group that met was not inclined to want to consider enacting a local law. They were more inclined to come up with some sort of a checklist that would be provided to sponsors of events in the town as a way of ensuring that they're going to, they know what they need to do in order to have a successful event. And by successful, I mean safe and not one that results in a lot of disgruntled neighbors. So we are going to work on that and get back together once that is, we put a checklist together. And again, I'll work with Tim on what we think is appropriate for that. And most of the mass gathering or special permit or special laws that we've been looking at, they're very, very similar. They have similar provisions. Not much is, it's very, there's a few like variations depending on what kind of size you want to, the law to apply to, or, and things like that. But for the most part, they're very, very similar. Health insurance. Tom Chartrand and I had a virtual meeting with members or the OSEBA people.
Yeah, we met with with our representative to OSEBA, and also they use KBM as their consultant, and there were several KBM members there as well.
Yes, and it's interesting. This is one of the things we've we need to address is not so much, I shouldn't say not so much, but one of the things they came out of that meeting, and again, consider the source, they have an interest in wanting us to stay with them, is that, it will be very difficult for us to change plans. First of all, we have debt that we're still trying to climb out of with that plan from some very significant expenses that, because we're self-insured, the town has incurred. But secondly, it's a very, I don't know if the word rich is right, but very, very generous plan that the town has provided over the years, and that has become really, for a small municipality, almost not supportable, because it is so rich. The out-of-pocket expenses are so low, and it gets used very, there's a lot of usage. So we're going to do some informational sessions with the town staff to try and curb or redirect how the plan is being used, because there are cost savings ways to use this plan that aren't being taken advantage of. So we're going to be getting some data from them, some statistics on how the plan is being used, and some guidance on how it could be used more effectively to try and cut down on the costs that the town, that we end up incurring because we're self-insured. And while, and so whatever the expenses are for the month, that's what we got to pay. And so I'm trying to look at this as to find some common ground. I can understand why people don't want to give this plan up. Unfortunately, now that we have a union in the picture, the union gets to weigh in on a change of the health benefits if there's any significant change. So we have now become a little bit handcuffed with what we can do as far as insurance goes. If we could switch plans, but there's also administrative, oh, there's Tim. There's also administrative expenses that get factored in, and OSEBAs are much lower than the other plans that we've been looking at. So when I said last week, it's not easy, or not last month, it's not easy. It's not easy to really try to bring the costs of health insurance down, especially given this plan that the town has had. It's very, very generous, and it's a work in progress, and we'll continue to work on it. And the next step is to have some of these informational sessions to see if we can change some of the usage of the plan and see if we can see on what we're paying each month, because the bill is significant. So does anybody have any questions of me at this point? We're working on it. It's just not easy. Okay. Yeah. Last for me is just the funding opportunities that we've been discussing. I did get the state aid to municipalities application filed with Senator May's office as per the authorization that the board gave me last month. So that's in process, started. It's going to be a long process, but we did start it. I also sent to Onondaga County Water and Environmental Protection a proposal for 4 different uses of the $200,000 in funding that's available through our sewer consolidation lease. I shared that with Tim and copied the county attorney's office on it, and that, so we'll see what comes of it. The 4 projects I proposed to them were help with the drainage issue in the preserve. And now I'm going to blank on them. I won't blank on them. The replacing the 3 antiquated furnaces in the town hall with energy and cost efficient heat pumps and a water heater. Finally getting the highway garage and oil and water separator that the DEC has told us we need. And lastly, not sure it's green infrastructure, which is what this funding source relates to, but I'm throwing it in there to see if it sticks. Possibly using it to replace the roof over the original part of the highway garage, which has never been replaced. And it is old, old, old. So that's what I have. Does anybody else have any questions for me?
Nope.
Okay. So I think we could allow for public comment if there is any, and then we can adjourn.
So Renee, you want me to go back and go through the comments that,
Well, public comment is now. So did people, if, I know there was one you mentioned from the public hearing, but
people need to type
the
in their
time.
comments again.
I'm sorry.
Then people should type their comments in again.
Okay,
Well, that's what we're saying, yeah?
yes, I mean, that's the problem with virtual and public comment. There's a certain time for it. If you start commenting at other points in time during the meeting, it doesn't count, and we can't see them, and they need to be.
Please type your comments in or raise your hand now at this point, and we will, I have one person who would like.
And they need to identify themselves.
So I'm going to do that one first. Go ahead, Don, please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Don Sala. I live at 8134 Solomon Seal in Pompey Pines. And I would like to know how the board, the town board, can look into the possibility of creating a separate zone, taxing zone, I guess, for brush pickup in the northern part of the town. A lot of people end up renting trucks or borrowing trucks and going to Okra, and that's fine. But some people, you know, this will throw their brush in the ditch and other unsavory ways of getting rid of it. But it is a burden for those of us who live on less than an acre without having a designated area that is, we could just pile up our waste.
Okay, thanks, Don. We will look into that. I just would mention that the Preserve with their homeowners association has a process for their brush pickup because they do it twice a year, but I know Pompey Pines does not have a homeowners association. So that's, we're open for discussion on that. We can talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Greg Hurley has a comment. I'm afraid you're wasting your time addressing employee health care until your union contract expires next year. However, you could immediately address health plans for elected officials.
I don't understand that one, the latter part. There is no elected official that I know of that's on the health plan, so that's that's moot.
Tom Purcell is on the health plan. He's the only elected official.
Oh, sorry. You're right, one. I think of him as highway.
That is it for the moment.
Okay. Board, do you want to wait or are we good to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second. It's the only time I've said I had anything to do with the motion all night, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it always.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Aye.
Good night.
Bye.